expat audience. Okay.
Well, I mean, I think there is a big possibility to do it, and but the thing here is like if you introduce a new format somewhere in like London or Berlin and so on, you can basically like just come and do a show. To do new format in Moscow, first we have to teach people what is this new format, because the last 5 years we spent teaching people what is stand-up, even because it's only so popular and so I don't know, interesting for people to see on TV in the last maybe 2 or 3 years, and I've been doing it for 5. So when we started doing it, people didn't even understand that. And still, like every show we have, even though we're doing it for five years already, and we're bringing some very big names, big acts, and we sold out a few theaters and so on. It's still, every show we have is like a secret show, as you call it, because it's always, you know, like people find it and they say, oh my god, I would never imagine there is English stand-up in Moscow, even though it exists for 5 years already, and we've done more than 30 or 40 different venues in Moscow and so on. And now we're trying to introduce some new formats. We started a new comedy organization in September, Still the Show Comedy, and we are actually looking at London and Berlin as inspiration for some new formats, because we think if people there are interested and can understand this and want to see this, there is definitely some people in Moscow that want to do it as well. Maybe not 100, 500, 10,000, but like 50, which is enough for us in our venue. There should be. So we have started with some new formats, and actually they're very promising, and there is some big potential in this, I think.
Yes, I saw that people pay there. I mean, pay like £5, £10, depends on who is the guest or who's the host. But I mean, they pay, so there is like this interest. But now, coming on the hot part of this podcast, there is a tendency nowadays in the world that politics is, let me say, is led by not politicians, professionals, but more from like, let me say, comedians. I bring you one example. The 5-star movements in Italy, the leader is Mr. Beppe Grillo, a comedian, a stand-up comedian, but old style, of course, but we can say that he's a stand-up comedian. And come on, Trump is not a professional in politics, but he's not also a fully comedian, but he made some show. Do you remember his show, like
Yeah, I know.
I forgot the name, but he was on CNN. He was like having his show. Even Boris Johnson, he's not a politician, he's a journalist, very open to the public and telling jokes. I mean, if you see, the guy is like making stand-up and moving closer to Russia, the new president of Ukraine. He's an actor, but what kind of actor is he? He's a comedian. He's not like a theater actor and so on, so he's a comedian. You know? What do you think? Like, I hope that you will become a president of Croatia, or prime minister of Croatia at least.
No thanks.
Okay, you withdraw from this position. But I have my own opinion, but I would like to share with you this thought and listen before your thought. Why nowadays the world is moving from politics, real politicians, to comedian or people that is more able to communicate with people?
I think it's because nowadays people look for entertainment in everything, and just they're not kind of interested in politics unless it's entertaining, unless it's someone doing something funny or stupid or silly. So they're looking for this like shock factor, and I think that's how Trump was elected, based on shock factor. His whole campaign, and during his campaign, and the opposition was presenting this like, oh my god, he said this, he said that, he insulted this woman, he said this about a handicapped person and so on, and in the end people chose him anyways, because it was just like endless endless source of entertainment. And now, like, I mean, he's the only president that's actually like actively tweeting, and it's him, not some PR assistant, and he's tweeting such, like, silly, stupid things all the time.
Yeah, we will have an episode about the Trump effect, as I would like to call it, and how Trump got elected. So it's very huge, it's very deep. But I think, yes, you're right. I agree completely with you. But another thing is that these people came up to the public. I mean, I'm not talking about Trump, because Trump was already like very famous, but people got attracted in very difficult moment, global moment. So, global crisis that is not disappearing. We are expecting another global crisis for the next year. So in 2020 there is another factors. I mean, data are telling that it's very, very possible that we will have another global financial and economic crisis. Migration, for example, in Europe. So we have like nationalistic movements that are coming up. Why? Because there is a factor of the crisis. Okay, discontent. So people are unhappy. And so on. So I agree with you that people is looking for entertaining, but they can find entertaining in something else. So they can choose, I don't know. Even Berlusconi is like a guy that was entertaining people. He hosts free television, journals, and so on. He's like a very good storytelling, jokes, and so on. But he lost the appeal to the people. So they are searching something more crude, let me say, more tough. So the language of Trump is very tough, and the language of Beppe Grillo is very tough. Johnson, even if he's not a comedian, but he's using very tough. Otherwise, the effect of Zelensky, so in Ukraine, is something different. Do you find any analogy with the Ukrainian? I know that we are not experts about politics, but you see in your audience. So the Ukrainian effect, and maybe it's possible in Russia in the future to have this, if we will have discontent. What do you think about it?
Well, I think the thing is like, there was first level was, kind of just being a funny guy, just kind of silly funny guy that can, do some crazy, maybe silly body language gestures and so on. Not that not a very serious conservative, just like cold politician. Then of course people got used to it, so it had to be more, and now we have people like Johnson and Trump and so on, who are very rude and crude and direct, and they can use even like some like words that are provocative and so on, because people are just, they need more to get entertained. So 10 years ago, 15 years ago, people like Berlusconi, who were kind of just a funny guy, a funny clown. Now they need someone more just to be
more direct.
Yes,
something more direct.
To be sucked into this whole story of politics. I think in Ukraine it's a bit different, because he's the president is an actual comedian, let's call it like that, by trade, by profession, like comedic actor. But I think the way he's running,
so he played the role of president in his like a serial, no?
Yes.
He trained a bit, let me say.
He had some professional background.
Yeah, he has some professional background.
But I think the way, like, he's a comedian, but the way he's running the country is not a joke. But I think on the other hand, Trump is not a comedian, but the way he's running things is a joke. It's just same.
So you find like two different poles. Like Ukraine is a guy that come from the background that is like a comedy, television, and so on, but he's taking serious the post. Otherwise, in UK or in let me say in US, the guys are more or less, let me say, professional, but they are not taking too serious the things.
Well, maybe they think they're taking serious, or they are taking seriously. Like, I mean, I think Trump is taking his presidency very seriously, but he's, to everyone else, it's kind of too, not everyone else, but to a big number of people, he just looks like a joke, right? Because of the way he's doing these things, and because of how he lets himself being like ridiculed and being like I don't know, just made fun of, and there were many like parodies and videos of like talk show hosts, or if everyone just all the stand-up comedy specials that came out in the last 2-3 years by American comedians always talk about Trump and joke about Trump and so on. So he just turned this whole position into like a big joke. While on the other hand, I think if you are a comedian, I think to be a comedian, to be a really good comedian, you have to be very intelligent, you have to understand people really well, read people really well, know like how the wheels turn. And with this, if you want to be serious and you actually want to help the country, you can. Because these are the skills that are also very important and useful in politics. It just matters like how do you use it and how do you present yourself.
Don't you think that I'm connecting a bit with you to your like remark, the last? Don't you think that Trump is doing intentionally this? So he's creating the personage Trump, the tough guy, the direct guy, the very, let me say, dirty jokes maker guy, to create a personage, to let the people talk about him, to create more attention on his person, like on his personage. And the same things he's doing Boris Johnson. So scandals and other like gossip and so on. So don't you think that I mean, you are a comedian, okay? So if you were in their position, could you create some let me say hot events? I mean, try to attract the people to have, let me say, the spotlight on your personage, so on Igor Mondae, not Igor the person, but Igor the comedian, to, let me say, achieve the goal that is like, okay, Trump is the president, Boris Johnson is the prime minister, you maybe have your own goal to become like the best comedian in Europe, but don't you think that they are doing it intentionally? So I create a personage, people talk about me, I have the media on my side, so I reverberate. I mean, I have like I increase my audience.
Yeah, definitely, it's intentionally created to attract. It's this like shock factor and entertainment value that I was talking about, because people were very lethargic and uninterested in politics for some time, until someone came and made it into like a big, reality show basically. And now it's like people are watching all this kind of news and so on, just kind of curious. I remember when it was I think in June or July, if I'm not mistaken, when Boris just became the prime minister. So it was this whole thing, like a reality show basically, like who will run the country. So it was like kind of like a big, not a joke, but big show. And that's why I think, yeah, definitely they created these personas, these characters that can. There is a great, even I think 1 or 2 years before Trump even became the president, there was a great episode of Black Mirror TV series, which is written by a comedian, by like a prominent British comedian, Charlie Brooker, who predicted that like if you just create some kind of character that is shocking enough, you can kind of get people's attention and get them to like you. So in an episode, there is this, it's not even a real person, it's like
Spoiler for those of you that didn't watch this episode. I apologize, but I can stop Igor.
It's if you didn't watch it, watch it. But if you didn't watch it, just pause, mute this for the next 10 seconds. So yeah, basically that you can create a character which is not even a real person, and he's just gonna be rude, and he's just gonna be like shocking, and there's gonna be a lot of news and a lot of like media coverage of him, and then with this exposure, you can use this to apply for some position as a president. If I remember correctly, he also becomes a president. So
yeah, I stopped watching Black Mirror because I became afraid of the realities that Black Mirror showed. I'm honest. I mean, for me, it's like an ongoing real horror movie, because it's the realities. They show like the technology that we have, but shown like some years ago, because Black Mirror is not like completely new. It's like 5 years ago came up. So, and I said like, oh my god, they're showing the realities. They're showing something that we have now. So, yeah, I stopped to watch because I start to become afraid.
This is why I think like being a comedian, if you're a good comedian, of course, if you're not like
So if you are Igor Mondae,
yes,
so let
if
me
you're
say.
not, I said good, not excellent. If you're Igor Mondae, you're an excellent comedian. But